Good evening. Happy Monday. Happy first day of Black History Month. Happy New Year. I haven't been here since the New Year began. So I just want to welcome everyone this evening. Going to take a couple of seconds and give some folks a chance to get on for this great conversation we're going to have this evening. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I see a couple of folks have joined me thus far. Welcome. And please, as you're coming on, drop in the comments where you're joining us from so we can have an idea of where everyone is, and then we can get into a great conversation with an awesome guest. For those of you who don't know me, I am Marcy Thomas. I am the founder of Brown Girl Collective and also the BGC Book Club, which has been on hiatus for a minute because I had a major move to do over the holidays, but I'm so glad to be back with you again. So glad to have the opportunity to start out Black History Month with a great author with just great things that are going to be coming ahead. So I see we got a good group of people in. So thank you. Please, once again, as you come on, drop where you're from in the comments. And I'm not going to delay or deny you much longer. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm bringing on our special guest for the evening, Bridgett Davis. She's a novelist, essayist, teacher, filmmaker, memoirist, and curator. She's the author of the wonderful book we'll be discussing this evening, The World According to Fannie Davis, My Mother's Life in the Detroit Numbers. She's also the author of Shifting Through Neutral, which was published in 2004, and Into the Go Slow, which was published in 2014. She's also the writer and director of the critically acclaimed award-winning film Naked Acts, which is now part of the Black Film Archives permanent collection. She's had a career as a newspaper reporter with the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It means a lot to me because I actually just moved to Atlanta. Her articles have also appeared in hosts of newspapers and magazines. Equally dedicated to her work as a teacher and a mentor, Davis is also professor of journalism and writing professions at Baruch, I hope I said that right, College City of New York, where she teaches creative film and narrative writing. She also facilitates writing workshops for junior faculty of color and women seeking to complete and publish their creative and scholarly works. A graduate of the wonderful Spelman College and Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, Davis currently lives in Brooklyn with her family. Without any further delay, I'm going to bring on Bridgett Davis. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So
hello,
glad.
Marcy.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, happy Black History Month.
Yes, happy Black History Month. Yes, it's exciting. I'm so looking forward to this month and next month, Women's History Month. And this book selection actually fits in great with both. I'm talking about your mother's life, The World According to Fannie Davis, My Mother's Life in the Detroit Numbers. I do see we have at least one person on board from Detroit as well. So
nice.
Welcome. So please drop where you're from in the comments so we can know where you're at, where you be, where you're at.
Yeah.
Well, to get started, I just want to say we talked about this a few minutes when I first came on, that I really enjoyed the book because there are a lot of connections between your family story and things that resonated within my own family. So
right.
I really consider it a pleasure to read the book, and actually this is my second go around, so that for anyone who hasn't read it, it's that good. Read it. So just as a bit of introduction for those who may not have read it, do you have something you'd like to share from the book, just so people can get an idea of what it's all about?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. First, I want to say I'm just so honored to be here. I was really looking forward to this conversation. And so it's exciting for me to be able to talk to you about the book and really share my experiences with all the listeners. I never tire this, because when people tell me, especially Black women, that the story is resonating with them, it's very moving because I feel and felt for my whole life that I had a very particular story that most people maybe couldn't relate to. And it turns out, that wasn't the case at all. People see a lot of themselves in my story, even though maybe their parents weren't in the numbers, right?
Right.
So I'm going to read just a really brief 3-minute excerpt. And what I'll just say for those who haven't read the book yet, that it is about my mom, Fannie Davis, who gave us a middle-class life by running the numbers. And most Black folks know what that is. It was a precursor to the lottery. And the only other distinction that's important for me to mention is that the numbers happen to be illegal. Or as my mom would often say, this is a legitimate business that just happens to be illegal. So we had to keep it a secret. So the excerpt I'm reading is really about that moment as a child when I kind of fully got the sort of fuller ramifications of what my mom did for a living and my role in that whole experience growing up. So here we go. One day, I decided to organize Mama's number running materials and went through the house gathering everything together into one shallow cardboard box. I was enamored of my own organizational skills and decided to add one final touch. On the side of the box, using bright pink nail polish, I carefully painted in boxy letters, Mama's numbers. I proudly showed this to my mother, impressed with myself for remembering the possessive apostrophe. She took one look and said, "You can't put my business out in the street like that." Looking back, this was the moment when I became consciously aware that I must keep my admiration for my mother's work a private experience. Before, I had known to keep her livelihood a secret, but I hadn't yet formed an opinion of, felt any pride in what Mama actually did for a living. Now I understood that my pride for her also had to be kept secret, as did all the evidence of her work. Chastened, I took my black magic marker and scratched out what I had painted onto the box. And after that episode, I began shoving things into drawers away from visitors' view. Yet, to my delight, Mama continued to keep all her paraphernalia in that box, which ended up permanently perched atop a Louis XV style chair in her bedroom. If I looked closely, I could still see the pink letters I had painted beneath the blackout marker. And whenever I passed by, I would chant to myself, incantation style, Mama's numbers, Mama's numbers, Mama's numbers.
Thanks so much for sharing that. That's great. That was a great part of the story to just hear how you came to a realization that, oh, maybe this isn't something that the mom wants everyone to know that she's doing. But someone, Cynthia is saying that, where's her comment? Hold on a second. Black kids often keep such secrets. Yeah, that's true. There'll be things going on with the home that you're not able to tell. But one of the things I really love about your mom, and you kind of start the book off talking about how she was no nonsense. I like the story, and you can expound on it a bit, where you're at school and you have these shoes.
Yeah.
You have a teacher that has something to say about your shoes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I opened the book with this story because for me, it was so impactful. Obviously, it stayed with me my whole life. And also, it did feel like the perfect way to quickly explain to everyone the kind of mother I had, Mm-hmm. And I was only 6 years old, and I was in the first grade, and in a typical classroom day, just showing my teacher my work. And for some reason, when I was about to go back to my seat, she stopped me and she said to me, you sure do have a lot of shoes. And it was a very weird statement to me, and it made me nervous because the week before she had asked me what my father did for a living. And I had said, I told her the truth. I said he doesn't work because he was disabled. And she said, well, what does your mother do? And I could not tell the truth. I lied. I said, I don't know. So now the very next week, she's telling me, you sure do have a lot of shoes. And even as a 6-year-old, I was like nervous about that. I thought something's not right here. And so I didn't really say anything. And then she said to me, before you sit down, I want you to name all the shoes you have, every pair. Go ahead. And I innocently named 10 pairs of shoes.
Wow.
She did not like that. She said, that's an awful lot. And then she just dismissed me and told me to take my seat. I thought it was all over. But the next day, she called me back to her desk and she said to me, you did not tell me that you had white shoes too.
Oh, Lord.
Like I had forgotten to name the pair of shoes I was wearing. And I was so upset. I was really like apologetic, all of that. And I did go home and tell my mother because I understood that she should know. Somehow instinctively, I understood this was maybe encroaching upon our secret. And I was really worried that I was going to get in trouble because I thought I had said too much. But in fact, my mom said to me, who does she think she is? That's none of her damn business.
I know that's right.
Yeah. And then that wasn't it. My mother said, get in your car, get in the car, get your coat, let's go. And you know where I thought we were headed. Back to school. And I was like, oh God, you know, you don't want to confront your teacher. I just was like, oh God, no. But my mom did not take me to school. She took me to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
And she bought me another pair of shoes. And she said, you're going to wear these to school tomorrow. And you better tell that damn teacher of yours that you actually have a dozen pairs of shoes. You hear me? So that was my mom.
Right. And that really set the stage for the type of woman that she was. She was no nonsense. You know, she had what she had. Cynthia saying, right, mom, go, mom. I know that's right. She's like, I'm not taking that crap. You know, it's probably better for the teacher that she didn't go up there. But it just really set the stage for the type of person that she was, because if you just look at the title of the book, you know, the cover of the book, you say, oh, my mom's, you know, a number runner. There are a lot of things that a person would think of someone who was running numbers, but your mom, Fannie, was so much more than that. And that opening story just really set the stage for the type of person that she was. No nonsense. She was about her business and all of that. So just what I found interesting was how your mother decided that she wanted to get into doing numbers in the first place, after being from Tennessee and, you know, making the decision to move to Detroit from Tennessee for opportunity, like a lot of Black families did during that time. And, you know, getting up there and seeing that it may not have been all that it was cracked up to be. Just talk a little bit about what it was in your mom that made her decide she wanted to not go the typical route and do something on her own.
Yeah, you know, she migrated north with the same dreams as so many other Black folks did, millions of them before her. And it didn't work out because, as I said, my father became disabled. And this was after he struggled to be, you know, he went through this experience of being the first fired, the last hired. You know, the auto industry had its own racism and he experienced it. But even worse than that was becoming disabled. So my mother looked up, she had several small children at that point, and she realized as she put it, I had to make a way out of no way. And it just dawned on her that everybody in her community was playing numbers for like 50 cents, 25 cents, a dime. But she thought, you know, I could collect those numbers for them. I could be their bookie. Why not? And that was really how she came upon it. She just thought, I need to figure something out. I don't want to take a job that's going to take me away from my children all day. There were very few options for Negro women in Detroit at that time. So in her mind, this made a lot of sense. As she used to say, it was a risk to actually take a low-paying job that would keep us in poverty. She said that's what was risky. Mm-hmm. So I would say quickly that what I do know about my mom is that she was really inspired by her own father, who was an entrepreneur. And it's astonishing when you think about it, you know, because he was a man who came of age in the early 20th century. And you know, a lot of Black men at that point, if they were not sharecroppers in the South, they were doing hard labor. Mm-hmm. And somehow he managed to be a self-employed man. And that had a big impact on her. And I know that that was in her mind when she thought about what was possible.
Right.
And that is why, you know, it's really important to understand the generational impact that, you know, is felt in Black families based on what your ancestors were able to do or were prevented from doing. Just the fact that, say, for instance, my grandfather never had his land confiscated by white men, which was the standard back then. Absolutely. That gave him the stability to care for his own family. And that gave her an example. So when she found herself in tough times in Detroit, she had a sense of what was possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or saying making something out of nothing.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Paula asked a question. I know it does come up in the book. Paula asked, did you feel a conflict burden keeping the secret?
That's such a great question because, you know, I had to really think through that as I began to write the book. I had this sense of pride and protectiveness about, you know, my mom. And so I held the secret for a very long time. And I didn't even want to write about it long after lotteries were legal and everything. And my mom has passed on many years ago. So there was no real reason to keep the secret, but I was keeping it because I was staying loyal to her, I felt. But then I had to ask myself, well, are you keeping the secret because there's some shame around it? And the truth is, I never felt any shame around that secret. Ever. I mean, I just understood that that was necessary because the family business could be in jeopardy if people found out. But thanks to my mom.
Okay, there we go. Lost it for a second, but we're back.
Oh, okay. So, you know, my mom created an environment to ensure that none of us felt shame around the secret. Mm-hmm. And that was really the tone that she set, you know, that this is not shameful work. It just is work that the government has decided is not legal. But as we all know, the government has all kinds of laws that are not fair. That was her way of explaining it to us. She's like, don't get caught up on whether something's technically legal or not. Exactly. So that was really important to really help me grow up without feeling ashamed, even though I had a secret to keep.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's just so important because if you look at the life that you had with your mom, I mean, there's your family. There's nothing to be ashamed of at all in the way that your life is. And I just love the fact that you told this story, that you didn't hold it a secret, because there are so many people that, you know, had, you know, play the number. I mentioned to you before we came on that my dad, he didn't, you know, run numbers, but he played numbers regularly. And I would call him up like, Daddy, had a dream about, or if I went on a trip, what was your flight number? You know, all these things that you mentioned in your book. I can relate to that because my dad, if I travel, what's your room number? You know, things like that. So, I mean, it's just something that's a part of who we are as a people. And even though others may look at it negatively, it's obviously something that has helped folks along the way. That is one of the things I also enjoyed about the book, is that you talk about the ways in which Black people did utilize their lottery winnings or the earnings and things to actually to help with civil rights and all these other things. Could you speak a little bit about that and how your mom?
Yeah, like I learned a lot of history. I learned a lot of history myself in doing the research for the book, because even though I grew up around a numbers running household, I didn't know the history. I knew my mother was like a philanthropist. I knew that she was generous, that people were grateful that she was able to help them out at different points. I saw the way she helped the community, but I didn't know that that was actually part of the tradition for numbers men and women. Almost no women. She was like one of the only women.
Right.
But these numbers men were pillars of the community. Traditionally, they would help people to get home loans. They would provide the home loans for Black folks because the government wasn't allowing them to get mortgages. And they would help them to start small businesses. And they kept the NAACP and the Urban League afloat when those organizations were fledgling. And in Detroit specifically, it was the numbers man, the number one numbers man in Detroit, who invested in Joe Louis. He literally gave him the resources to become a heavyweight champion. And he was his manager. And all that money came from numbers. So people, the fact that Detroit had a hotel where Black folks could stay and it was beautiful was because a numbers man bought that hotel and decided that we deserved as good as anyone else, So these are the parts of the world of the numbers that folks don't know about. And like your dad, playing the numbers and enjoying it and making it a part of his life, that was millions of Black folks, but we were all keeping the secret, because somebody told us it was shameful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's true. Let me see, get this kind of Sharice is saying government is always changing the rules to benefit the government. Liquor, running numbers, and now legalized marijuana that got our people locked up. That's right. It's unfortunate, but it is the truth.
That's it right there. She nailed it. I witnessed the government take over the numbers. They called it their own legal numbers game. They were bold about it and bold in their intent. And you're right. She's right. Look at marijuana. It's the exact equivalent. When certain people were supposedly indulging in marijuana, it was denigrated. They were denigrated. People were made to seem like criminals, And now, oh wow, it's a moneymaker. It's cool. And who now
they're trying to keep us out of it?
Exactly. Who owns all these dispensaries now? Think about
it. Right. So it's definitely something that you can see the parallel between the two. But speaking of, one of the things you talked a lot about is the shame or supposed shame of numbers or needing to keep it secretive. One of the things I found interesting in the book, and you talk about church and spirituality and how that played into it. And I know just from my own experience, being in certain churches where they would talk about, you better not be playing that number, or you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. Gambling is a sin, it's against God. But then if you look at historically, that a lot of people did not necessarily have that take on it. Talk a little bit about how some of the churches and spiritual leaders got involved with the numbers as well. I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, what a contradiction, right?
Right.
I mean, I'll tell you, my mother had customers who were sanctified and secretly playing with her because, you weren't supposed to do that in public. And yet at the same time, there were a lot of these church leaders, folks who call themselves spiritualists, for instance, who actually would tell you that if you came to church and put a little money in the pot, they could give you a number to play. Folks used to secretly play the Bible verses for that Sunday service, right? John 6, 4-2. You know, John chapter 6, verse 42. People were always combining this numbers playing with religion. That was, quite frankly, all throughout the history of the numbers. They were just doing it on the down low, or they were doing it, not telling anyone, etc. And I want to say the interesting thing with my mom, she never believed in that. She always said, you don't need to be mixing up God in your wanting to play numbers. That in her mind, those were separate endeavors. She's like, that's not God's role to give you a number. You know, you don't go to church to get numbers. It just is not the way that works. Her whole thing was, what's for you, you'll get.
Absolutely.
But, you know, traditionally, numbers are part of Black folks' whole understanding of spirituality, wouldn't you say? You know, the power of numbers, and magic, and sort of this sense that certainly I know people used to talk about dreaming a number and believing that spirit brought that number to you, or a loved one who's gone on has come to you in a dream, wants to help you out by giving you a special number.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I had it up, Marla said churches didn't want folks playing numbers because it took money from the church. But here's the thing about that. Whenever they won and took some money back to the church, they turned it down. So it's like, okay, you don't want me to play, but when I win, you want to cut. So, you know, what's that all about?
Yeah, numbers money propped up a lot of churches.
I can believe it. I can believe that.
Yeah.
And Paula's comment from Paula is, I admire your mom's determination, showing her family and friends the best of what life had to offer, and your family deserved nothing but the best with discipline and hard work. Thank you, Paula. You have some great comments and questions today. Thank you for co-hosting with me.
That's a great comment. Yeah. That's a good comment, because, you know, my mother had this fundamental belief that you're entitled to good things, that she too was American, and she believed that those words applied to her, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely.
She felt her people had given more than any to this country, and therefore we should actually benefit from whatever this American dream was claiming itself to be. And so that was her attitude. Why shouldn't I have nice things? Why not? Right. Why shouldn't my children have the best? Why not? You know, and because she had so much integrity, she felt that we're deserving because no shortcuts have been taken here.
Right.
We put in the work, you know, and we are doing it for the right reason. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Because the one thing about your mom, it wasn't just so that you all could have things, just the ways that she gave back to the community and you know, just all the different endeavors. And one of the other things I like, and I'm thinking about it from an entrepreneurial point of view, is that, you know, she was doing her thing, but when she found the need to make a shift, she would make the necessary shifts so that she could maintain. So she kept her eye on the pulse of the market, so to speak, and would make the necessary changes so that she could continue to, you know, support her family and support the loved ones and the different people that came in to you all's lives. But she also had a lot of great relationships. There was that relationship building that she did, so that, like, for instance, when she might need to get a little cut from somebody to help her out just in case, those sorts of things. Talk a little bit about that, because I found that really spectacular about your mom, because sometimes people are so much into, ooh, this is me and I got to get mine and I don't want to, you know, I can't let other people in because it might hurt me, but your mom did not have that attitude. Talk a little bit.
And I think now some of it was the way she was. It was her nature, you know. It's like, I'll help you, you help me. And so that felt like a natural way to go about it. Also, given the kind of business it was, you really were dependent upon one another. You know, you were a sort of like close-knit community. So one of the biggest numbers men in the city was a friend of my mom's. And she knew that if things got too crazy or too tight for her, he would literally take over her business. And as she put it, hold it for her until she could build her resources up again. That's trust. She had a friend who ran a check cashing business. And so she had lots of cash. And if my mom needed to pay off a big hit, she could go to her friend for the loan, and vice versa. Her friend knew, yeah, if I get into a little tight situation, I know Fannie's there for me. So they had this reciprocal kind of relationship, which I found so fascinating to watch growing up, just to see the mutual respect and the mutual support. And, you know, another one of my mom's philosophies, she loved to see Black folks do well. Like, that made her happy. And if she could help you to do that for yourself, all the better. Because her attitude was, we should all be thriving. You know? So, yeah.
And Paula has another comment. She enjoyed the historical aspect, which I mentioned. You know, I love that part, and how she had to go about buying the house. Now that was very interesting. How your mom, well, you can. I'll let you tell it. I won't tell it. How she did. How that you grew up in the earlier part of your life. What your mom had to do to be able to get her home.
You know, I honestly, I'm almost embarrassed to admit, didn't even understand myself until I started researching the book, what was involved. Because I knew my mother bought our family home. We had this beautiful 3-story, 4-bedroom colonial brick home that was, you know, the symbol of our middle-class life and really a dream home. And I knew my mother had bought it what we call on contract. She always said, I knew this, that she'd bought the house on contract. And I just thought, literally, Marcy, that, well, my mother's in this unorthodox business. So she can't show a pay stub. So she needs to find a unique way to basically get, you know, buy a home. She can't do it the traditional way. That was what I thought. Oh my God, that's not what it was at all. If you've seen, you know, I don't know, I think about things like A Raisin in the Sun. It's a very similar kind of story. It turns out that thanks to redlining, almost no Black folks could get traditional mortgages.
Right.
And that's because the federal government basically made sure that any home a Black person wanted to buy was a risky venture. So if it's too risky, then we're not going to insure that loan, which meant that lenders didn't have to lend to Black folks. I mean, this is the FHA, this is the federal government's policy to essentially keep Black folks from getting mortgages because they were too high risk. And so while the rest of Americans were being thrust into the middle class with these great low interest loans, Black folks who wanted to buy homes, all they could do is get into these contracts deals with individual sellers, many of whom exploited them because these contracts were just between the buyer and the seller. My mom's contract was really, when I looked at it and finally saw it, it was really exploitative. And these contracts were crazy. If you missed one payment, the seller could take the house back. I don't care if you've been paying on this house for 10 years. Not only that, you built no equity. And the seller held onto the deed until the house was completely paid for. So in one city, they recently did a study a year or two ago, in one city, Chicago, where this contract sale stuff was rampant. They estimated that Black folks had been bilked out of billions in property value.
I can believe it.
Through this contract sale, because folks would like sell you their house, then you missed a payment, they take the house back and they resell it 4 times, doing that again and again and again. just taking Black folks' only shot at some generational wealth. And you wonder why Black folks are so behind the curve and have so little wealth, so little, collective wealth, because your home is your biggest asset.
Absolutely. And when you keep a person from being able to own their home outright, that's definitely, there's nothing to pass down. There's nothing to, recycle or within the community. So that definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of comments here. Sharice is saying that, let's see here, redlining covenants that exclude us from purchasing in certain neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing I remember, it wasn't so much the housing itself, but when I did live in Detroit for 10 years myself, and I worked for an insurance agent at the time. And I remember the redlining was something that always came up a lot about that, because how the rates in Detroit, and the agent I worked for was in the city of Detroit, off of 7 miles, a matter of fact. Really? And how the rates were just so much higher that made everything more difficult and made things not as affordable. So that's definitely a thing, whether it's the home ownership itself or once you get in the home, it's so hard to maintain because all these other bills are so much higher because of where you live.
Mm-hmm. So, once again, it's just all redlining.
It's all redlining. Another comment, let's see here. Now, this is someone has a similar experience. Dory's great-grandmother was a bootlegger during the Great Depression and did similar things. Yes. Is your book on Audible? I can tell you it is. It is. This was my second read. The first time I did the Audible, so I've actually read it this time. So yeah, I mean, that's just so much just to hear that history of where we came from. But one of the other things that I really, well, a couple of things, several things actually. Your mom, even in terms of her relationships, she was a very strong person. I mean, she was a powerful woman. I mean, she just was. I mean, no way to deny that. But yet, in her relationship, she was still able to have relationship, maintain relationship. Just watching your mom as a wife, how do you think what she did for a living played into her relationship?
Yeah, I love that question, partly because I don't totally know the answer. Like it gives me a chance to really try to explore it myself, because people have said something as simple as, well, what happened with your mom and dad? And as my mom's sister said to me, they just grew apart. Mm-hmm. There's one answer there. But really, I think it was probably challenging to be the primary breadwinner, and to not fault your husband necessarily, but still that was going to drive a wedge between you because you're really on different paths. What I can tell you, my dad never begrudged my mom. He never said an unkind word about her. And he knew that she would always be there for him if he needed her, financially or otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so they had this history together. It's not that they didn't love each other. They grew up together. But he was not the partner she needed at a certain point in her life. And she was, I so respect her because she did not sacrifice her own happiness and stay in a marriage that wasn't right for her because they had history together. And at the same time, I don't feel she totally left the marriage just because they weren't financially equal. Because my dad used to help out with the business in the early years. So that wasn't really so much it. It was just that he didn't have the drive she had, and she knew and he knew that they were no longer a good match because they were just different. Their lives had shifted. And then my mom remarried, and she married my stepfather, who was a lovely man and a really great partner for her, but also not entrepreneurial like her, not a go-getter like her, but he didn't begrudge her for it. So he was someone she could live with, because he understood who she was and he was comfortable letting her be herself. And he also knew, this is important, he also knew that his lifestyle, that his grade of living increased and improved too when they got together. That's a real piece of it also.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I love that my mother didn't sacrifice, uh, having a partner in life simply because she was an entrepreneur. I love that about her story, actually.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to mention that, because I know in this day and age, so many women who are single. I happen to be a single woman, but
Yeah.
many times when you are a woman who has dreams, goals, aspirations, you're a powerful woman in your own regard, in the workplace, or out in the community or whatever. Sometimes that can be a challenge, in having the right type of partner, or finding a partner who is going to allow you to spread wings and fly.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really could appreciate the fact that
Yeah.
your mom, had that not just once but twice in her lifetime. Really, she was able to do that. So that that speaks a lot to her ability to choose.
Yeah, probably a little luck too.
Yeah, some of that luck. Yes. Yes, Paul is saying he was a good daddy. Yes, he was. We talked about that a little bit. I was a daddy's girl just like you. So yeah, those fathers, and having good fathers in your life that really love you and love you unapologetically, that is definitely a blessing, because every child, every young woman, grown woman can't speak that. So yeah.
Right. No, that's a gift. That's an incredible gift. As much as I obviously loved and admired and worshiped my mom, um, I actually was a daddy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that she was totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
There was no need or a sense of competition or resentment or envy. She loved that her daughter was well loved by her dad. She loved that. So
right. If my mom is watching, I know she would say the same thing. She would say the same thing. But speaking about the men, I actually had to write this down, something that your mama told you, and I'm like, woo, Mama Fannie. So pick a man up out of the gutter. Every time he looks at you, you'll remind him of that gutter. I was like, all right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yes.
Yeah, even my husband is like, he had a crazy situation at work and he was quoting that quote, because it's applicable in a lot of situations. But oh yeah, I never forgot that. I mean, it was a really important thing for her to get across to us, and it made so much sense. She's like, you want to help a man, you want to do all you can for him, help him be his best self, but be careful. Because that man wants everybody. He wants to be seen for the man he became. And you know too much. He knows you know. So this woman over here doesn't know about that part. She only knows him as the fabulous man he is now. Of course, that's what he wants. And that was really her point. Be careful, You need to grow together, or let a man want to be with you because he's at his best self.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. She's sending that wisdom. Thank you.
That's right.
I'm sure I'm not the only one to appreciate that. It just makes such a difference. One of the somebody saying finger snap. Yes. Yes. Now, one of the things about your lifestyle I also found interesting, and I think a lot of it had to do with what your mom did. Basically, the way that you lived and the places that you shopped and the things that you did would be considered to many upper middle class type life. Mm-hmm. However, that's not really the way that you lived, I guess, in terms of what the community would see. Speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I went through this whole process of describing the kind of social class we were. And I created a term, blue collar Black bourgeoisie. Mm-hmm. But we weren't part of that talented 10. And in fact, my mother was decidedly not that. And not only did she know that they would probably not accept her because of what she did for a living, she also didn't like that kind of exclusivity because it just wasn't her world. And also, given the work she did, she knew that her customers were from all walks of life, and they were. And that the last thing they needed was for her to act like she thought she was better than them. You know, like they knew that she lived well. She did. But my mother put she put a ceiling on that. She didn't go, for instance, and buy a big house in the suburbs. You have lived in Detroit. You know how easily she could have crossed over the city boundaries and moved to like a suburb, Southfield or somewhere. But she didn't. She always felt like my customers need to know I'm a part of Detroit, just like them. And so I don't ever want to, as she used to put it, that's not good for my business. They need to know I'm a part of them. Right. And she would always say to us, you're as good as anyone and better than no one. You know, so that kept us from also feeling like, well, you know, we're of this upper class level. No, we were grateful that we were living well, and we wanted to share the wealth, which is why my mom kept an open door policy. You know, again, it's like we're shopping at Saks, not because we're better than anyone, because we deserve to shop there like anyone. Right. That was her attitude. You know.
And one thing I know from living in Detroit, even though by the time I lived there from 98 to 2008, things had changed a lot, but I do know that there were a lot of Black people who lived well in Detroit because of the auto industry, especially when it was booming. So, yes, so to go shop at Saks, you know, like you mentioned, and of course now it's not going to come, the mall on Somerset. Somerset, yeah, Somerset. Mall. I know that there's some Detroiters in here going to Somerset. I mean, I would do that. It was no big deal to see Black people shopping in Somerset because there were people who had, you know, the wherewithal to be able to do that. But I do like the fact that your mom, even though she may have had, she still kept, you know, a level head about herself. She still was a person that was a down to earth, that, you know, that loved everybody and would help anyone. And, you know, I know that those were good lessons for you and your siblings and everyone who came in contact with her, that she was, you know, no respecter of persons, so to speak. You know, she just, everybody, everybody could get some love.
Exactly. Like my girlfriend said, she said, wow, growing up, Bridge, she calls me Bridge. The only person who can call me Bridge is my girlfriend, Stephanie, because we've been friends since we were like 12. And she said, that's the thing about your mom, you know, she said, you never knew who you were going to come across in the house if you came by to visit. She said, and I have to say there are all kinds of people, some of whom maybe some of us might have even wanted to judge. She said, but your mom didn't judge anybody. It was like everybody was just there, you know, being the same person. I mean, being equally welcomed. And she said that even taught her something that she never forgot, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Now, in later years, of course, we know that the Michigan State Lottery came into being, and at that time, you know, there were some transitions and things that your mom had to make with the business. But one of the things that, even though you found this out later on, she always had a plan for the future, you know, just looking at, you know, how she could save or things that she could do to set up the people that she loved moving forward. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was quite moved, you know, just to come to understand how my mom was making sure we were taken care of, you know, because I think she understood that this was an ephemeral business. Ultimately, it's not one that you have a retirement account, you know, that you saved into and can retire from one day. And so a lot of what she tried to do mainly was make sure we had something to inherit. And she did that through real estate. And I make no qualms about it. You know, I tell people I'm fortunate to be able to benefit from generational wealth because of my mom. And I'm sitting here talking to you in my brownstone in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, that I was able to purchase largely because of my inheritance from my mother, which came from her numbers business, you know, and that was her vision. That was really what it was all about for her. And so it feels really beautiful to think that the choices she made have made my life possible and my children's lives possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was her vision.
Right. And it came to pass. And that is a blessing that
Right.
he was able to do that. One thing, and I guess this is the part that a lot of us as Black women specifically do deal with, that I saw. Oh, I can still see you. You're still there.
All my light is like going out on me.
So we don't have too much longer.
I'm hooking it up. Don't worry.
But one of the things that with your mom is that she worked so hard. She did so much, and just I can imagine at times the levels of stress. And maybe not. Nowadays we're all about our self-care, or at least we talk self-care. Whether or not we actually do self-care, we at least speak to it. And I know that your mom, worked a lot. She was working 6 days a week. Even on the seventh day, she had things to do. And then in later years, she had health issues and ultimately passed away. What advice do you think that your mom would give to women, would have given to you or women, just based upon that, to find a way of perhaps balancing all of the things that you're doing, taking care of your family, but also making sure you're taking good care of yourself?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. My mom was not only running that business, the physical effort to run it, right? To manage everything she was managing. She was always doing it under the threat of exposure, of getting busted by, authorities. She was always doing it under the threat of burglary or robbery, because if people found out about her being in this cash business, she could be a target, right? And she was always also concerned about getting hit, as they say, so big that it wiped her out, because she was the banker. So if someone played a number for enough money, they could, have winnings that could have wiped her savings out. So imagine the sort of triple concern that she lived with on a daily basis. When I look at it now, I'm stunned. And while she did her best with what she knew to take care of herself, there was only so much that she knew she could do for herself. We know more now about taking care of ourselves than she did at the time. She was smart and she did what she could. She traveled, she took long baths, she made sure that she enjoyed herself with various. She loved culture, so she would go to plays and do that kind of thing. But that stress wears on you, and it gets in your body, and it lives with you. And so sometimes my heart goes out to her like you wouldn't believe, because what I feel more than anything is that she should not have had to do everything she did. I'm so grateful she did. I'm grateful she succeeded at it, but she shouldn't have had to do it. I teach at a college that is known for its school of business, and one of its alums is this. We have a lot of wealthy, rich alums, and one of them is a man who was so moved by my book, he decided to start a little scholarship at the college in her honor. And he said to me, he's a finance guy. He said, I've read this book. He actually wrote a review on Amazon. You could look it up. And he said, these things that she did, this is exactly the skill set of a stockbroker or a casino owner. He's like, in another time and place, that's what she could have been, because she had the wherewithal. She had the expertise and the know-how, but society wasn't going to allow that. Right. Society had a ceiling over what she could do. And so it's great that she figured out what she could do, but she also paid a high price because she had to be on the down low. Mm-hmm. And that stress, I believe, I'm clear, that's what ultimately shortened her life. So I don't know that self-care would have been enough. It was like the profession she had chosen to give us the life she wanted us to have was inherently stressful, thanks to basically systemic racism.
Absolutely.
To be blunt.
Yeah.
To be blunt. So, yeah, I admire her so much because she did figure out. I think we all need that lesson too, that you do what you can for yourself, to self-care, and choosing the right partner is part of it too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't need a man who's adding to your stress load.
Ooh.
So.
Oh no. Yeah. And I think your mother, even though she may not have been able to do certain things, she had the knowledge. And one of the other things that she said, and I'm probably paraphrasing, something to the fact that all Black people need therapy at the expense of the government or something like that, she said. So, I mean, it's not like she didn't understand that certain things were needed, but she just wasn't in a position to perhaps be able to do those things for herself.
Yeah, I mean, I think she just knew the toll that racism takes on the Black psyche. Because let's be clear, my mother was born in 1928 in Nashville, to a pretty good household in terms of her father's ability to provide, but still, my mom couldn't vote without fear of threat until I was a baby, until I was 4 years old when the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act was passed. What was that, 64? So, in my lifetime, my mother was finally, in a position to be able to vote without threat. So none of this is in the distant past.
Not at all.
Folks, she remembers Jim Crow. She remembered it well. She lived up under it.
She fought to not have to deal with it again.
Exactly.
She didn't want to go backwards. She didn't want to live a less than life. And, it's definitely an honorable thing that she has done. And in you having the wonderful relationship that you have with your mom and both your parents, but specifically your mom, and being able to share these stories. And, in the paperback of the book, it talks about, some of the people you ran across, since you told the story after you got beyond the thing of keeping it a secret, and just so many people could relate to and resonate with your story and with Miss Fannie's story, and I appreciate you for telling it. And, like we said before we got online, I could relate, the Detroit stuff, my dad playing the numbers, being close to my dad. I mean, and you told me your husband is from my original hometown, which is Cleveland. So, I mean, you and I have so much in common.
Yeah, and now you're in Atlanta.
Right, now I'm in Atlanta. You were here for 5 years. So there's just so many things that I could relate to you, and I could relate to your story. And I was blessed to read it twice. And I say to anyone, I'm going to go ahead and put up some of your information so people can see. Hopefully it's still there. Where did it get? I had the information of how to get in touch with you. Oh, there it is.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go.
Your Instagram, your Twitter, your website. And for those who may have joined us late and don't miss the title of the book, it is The World According to Fannie Davis. So, Bridgett, what do you have going on now? What's next for you, or what's going on so we can keep up with?
I am so excited to say that I'm writing the screenplay for the film adaptation of this book. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited. So it's been optioned by Plan B, which is Brad Pitt's company. And, they did Moonlight, and they did 12 Years a Slave. They did If Beale Street Could Talk. They did
Oh, wow.
Selma. Yeah, so they are really comfortable with stories about Black life, and they're letting me write the screenplay. So that says something.
And you know how, so that's
Yeah, well, I'm learning. It's a whole new thing based on your own life.
Well, yeah, that's true. Versus something that might be fictional.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So
Get some congratulations here, and different folks are just grateful that they're going to get a chance to see that. So that is awesome. So yeah, that's enough to keep you busy.
Yes.
Now, are you still teaching during the pandemic?
I am. My first class is tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Semester just started. Yeah.
I'm not thinking too late. Now, I mentioned in your in reading your bio that you do some other classes, or you have at some point. Are there any things that, say, some of the Brown Girl Collective followers could tap into, where you're teaching writing or anything like that right now?
Not at the moment. It's all, just teaching at Baruch College, where I'm a professor in their undergrad program. So I'm not doing anything at the moment. I have done workshops in the past, though. So if anything comes along, I'll make sure that's all on my website.
All right. Sounds good. I'm actually going to work with some of the authors that we've had before. I would like to do something to present that as well, not just coming on and talking about books, but maybe something for budding writers. So, I'll keep you on the list.
Okay. I love that. That's my way.
Yeah, a lot of us have stories in it within us, myself included. So it's just nice to have that opportunity. Well, I do want to thank you so much, Bridgett, for being on with us tonight. And, Deisha Filial, who I have her book, matter of fact, here is Legalize the Church Ladies. There is a video where I interviewed her, but she is the one who put me in touch with the wonderful Ms. Davis. So we want to continue to, if you haven't read this is mine is greasy. Shame on me.
That is another
series. Right, and she's getting a lot of accolades. Actually, she has some things coming up that will be on film as well. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things, we're going to finish up here in a moment, but one of the things I always do at the end of an interview is to share what the next book is going to be. So you all get first insight into that, and I'll post some things on social later, but I'm just going to tell you what the next book is going to be now. And it was already on the list. Actually, it was going to be for the month of April, but in light of recent events, I have pushed it up. It'll be the book for March, and it is Cicely Tyson's.
Oh.
So we will be reading this book and having the discussion about it on March the 1st. So that is a month from now, Cicely Tyson's Just As I Am. And I got the copy of the book like the day before she passed away, which is like, wow. It came out like 2 days before she passed, and I received my copy the day before. And my mom and I were talking about her and, how wonderful she is and everything. And then she passed away. So I think it's befitting that this is our next book that we read for March 1st. So we'll be reading Cicely Tyson's Just As I Am. Yvonne, you're asking what book is that? You may be asking about The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. That's Deisha's book. We've already done that one, but it's still available for you to read. So in case you missed that. But once again, our March book will be Cicely Tyson's Just As I Am. I will post up the information, links for you to purchase it if you don't already have it. And in a month, we will be discussing that. One of the other things I always do before I end, I give away a copy of the next book. So if everyone, and you can do it as well, Jet, put a number between 1 and 64 in the comments, and I'm going to pick a number. See, still on those numbers. pick a number between 1 and 64, and you can drop it in the comments, and that person will win a copy of next month's book. And you can as well, Bridgett.
There we go. Oh, in the comments.
Right. I'm gonna have to jot yours down because your comment will show up someplace else, but I will snag it when I see that you put it in there.
Did I put it in there?
It's not letting you?
No, there's a private chat.
That's it.
Oh, sorry.
That's the one. That's just in case you wanted to say something about somebody. No, I'm just kidding. Like, who is that? What kind of people you have on here? I'm just kidding. All right. So has everybody got their number? I have yours. I have yours. Okay, let me go back. Okay, going once, going twice. All right, see lots of numbers in here, so I'm going to go ahead and not look and pick one. Let's see, what do we have? Okay, 23. Let me see who's either cast 23 or the closest to 23. I think I already see who it is, but let's see here. I saw someone had 24. Boucher Miller, you are the winner with 24.
Nice.
So congratulations. The number was 23. I don't know if you can see it or not. Probably not in the light, but oh yeah, I see it there. It's 23. Yeah. So you are the winner, Ms. Miller. So congratulations to you. What I need for you to do is to send me your either on the Brown Girl Collective page, or if you're in the BGC book club, just send me a private message with your mailing address, and I will get the book out to you. So congratulations. So, and Bridgett, I'll email you because I need something from you as well. So
okay.
So thank you everyone for tuning in this evening. Thank you, Bridgett, again for a great interview. We'll be looking forward to seeing what's next. Looking forward to seeing the film. Hopefully it'll, well, you said it's gonna, a real film, not necessarily a television film. So hopefully the theaters, by the time it comes out, we'll be able to go to the theaters and blow it up and be able to really, take advantage of that. And for those of you who have not read the book, once again, The World According to Fannie Davis, please go ahead and pick up a copy, get it on the Audible, share it with a friend, go to your library, whatever the case may be. Continue to read this story and share it because it's so meaningful and powerful that we have stories of what I would consider regular people who are doing things that are extraordinary. It's good that we have those types of books. And thank you so much for sharing your mother with us. We appreciate you. We love you. Everybody continue to stay safe out there because COVID is still in these streets.
Yes.
Stay safe. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of your loved ones. And I look forward to seeing you again on March the 1st.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Really. Oh,
you're welcome.
This is great.
All right. Thank you. And you have a great evening.
Thanks.
All
Take
right.
care.
All right. Good night all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.